Welcome to the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association's Patients Come First podcast series. Podcast episodes are available on VHHA.com and on podcast hosting apps including Apple Podcast, Amazon, Spotify, and many others. We are a member of the Virginia Audio Collective and the World Podcast Network. Podcast episodes also air Sundays at 9 a.m. on 100.5 FM, 92.7 FM, and 8:20 a.m. across Central Virginia and 1650 a.m. in Hampton Roads. Please send questions, comments, feedback, or guest suggestions to pcfpodcast@vhha.com. Again, that's pcfpodcast@vhha.com. And today we're pleased to welcome Dr. Kristin Anderson, who is an assistant professor of microbiology and immunology at the University of Virginia. She's with us for a conversation about her research, her personal journey with cancer, and how those experiences have shaped her life and her work. So with that, welcome to the show, Dr. Anderson. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Julian, for the invitation and the opportunity to be here.
Well, we're very appreciative for you for making some time for us. And so let's just dive right into the conversation. Return listeners of this podcast know that we like to start these chats by getting to know our guests a little bit better. What we know about Dr. Anderson, as we mentioned, is that you're an assistant professor of microbiology, immunology, and cell biology at UVA. You earned your doctorate in immunology from the microbiology, immunology, and cancer biology program at the University of Minnesota. During graduate school, you were diagnosed with and underwent treatment for aggressive breast cancer, which we'll discuss in a little bit. After finishing treatment, you joined the lab of Dr. Philip Greenberg at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center at the University of Washington. And then when you're not in the lab, we've read that you enjoy traveling, hiking, connecting with friends, and spending quality time with family. Because all of us are more than just the highlights that are on our CV, Dr. Anderson, beyond those details, what should people know about your unique personal story?
Oh, man. I think the piece you touched on that is true to me 100% is that I love traveling. One of the things I love about science and being a researcher is that we get to learn new things. And I think that is intimately connected with my love for going new places, meeting new people, exploring new cultures, trying new things. And science has actually really opened a door for me to be able to do that even more often than I probably would otherwise. So science has taken me to Australia, to the Great Barrier Reef, and to Tanzania to climb Kilimanjaro. It's taken me all over the world. So I think that is probably one of the most unique things that I've gotten to do with my science that's different than your traditional science trajectory.
Fascinating. And it's always good when you can combine the personal and the professional. So good to hear that. I want to ask you, we talked a little bit about your educational background. Can you tell me what inspired your love of science and particularly the areas of focus of your professional work and your education, which is microbiology and immunology? How did you come to that?
Absolutely. When I was in high school and early in college, I was very excited about science. I had friends who were interested in science, and just talking about why does the world work the way it does was really inspiring for me, my friends. And so when I was in college, I took all the biology classes I could enroll in. And I think what really directed me to immunology was actually one of my undergraduate professors. We had a small immunology class when I was an upperclassman. There were only about 8 of us. And my teacher walked in one day, split us into 2 groups, and she threw a pregnancy test on the table in front of each group and made it a competition. She said, you have 90 minutes to figure out how this works. Your only hint is that it's essentially immunology in a box. Go. And I think that day was where my love for immunology really came from, because it showed me that you can use immunology as a tool in a lot of different ways, including to help people in the clinic. So I think that partially drove my interest in immunology and more broadly in immunotherapy.
Well, it's always important to have teachers that inspire passions in their student. It sounds like you did in that circumstance. Let's talk just a little bit more on immunology and microbiology. Just for the benefit of our listeners, can you define those disciplines and the work that they entail?
Absolutely. So immunology is the study of your immune system. So the cells in your body that circulate and protect you from germs and from cancer. And microbiology is really a study of organisms, things like bacteria, viruses, other organisms that could potentially make you sick, but don't always. And my unique research program merges microbiology, immunology, and cancer biology because we actually use viruses to insert new information into immune cells, T cells, so that they can actually recognize and kill cancer more effectively. So the work we do is really at the nexus of all 3 of those components, micro, immuno, and cancer biology.
I appreciate that explanation. And then I want to turn now to a little bit more of your personal story. We foreshadowed this a few moments ago, but from what I've read, during your 4th year of pursuing your doctorate degree in immunology, you received some really startling news, a life-altering diagnosis that you had an aggressive form of breast cancer. You were still in your 20s. I wonder, Dr. Anderson, if you can take us back to that time and just tell us about that process of diagnosis and then the treatment that you went through after that.
Certainly. I remember the moment that the doctors told me it's cancer. That moment is like a flashbulb memory. And I know my life changed in an instant, because when you're facing something that intense, that major, your life will never be the same. I was very fortunate. Where I went to grad school at the University of Minnesota, we had excellent health care. I had an amazing care team, and I went through many rounds of chemotherapy, pretty aggressive chemotherapy. I lost all my hair. I had a couple major surgeries. But what was really incredible was the team worked with me, and by the time we got to surgery, I had already completed chemo. And when I came out of surgery, the doctors were able to say we couldn't find any tumor when we went in. And that moment really, I think, changed the whole trajectory of my career, because I knew I wanted to give that feeling that I had when I learned I was considered no evidence of disease. I wanted to give that feeling to other patients.
And that's a great segue to the next question, because I did read a news article where you offered that quote, I want other cancer patients to have that feeling too. And you talked a little bit about the work that you do now and how it is at the nexus of immunology and microbiology and immunotherapy. And I wonder if you can just tell us more about the research you're doing now. From what I understand, one of the projects you're working on is focused on designing new treatments for patients whose tumors aren't responding to current therapies or weren't responding to those therapies. So I wonder if you can tell us more about how your own experience has inspired the work you do and what that work looks like today.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I really enjoyed about my graduate training was I learned how T cells, one of the really important immune cells in your body, recognizes things that are foreign that aren't supposed to be there, and how oftentimes in cancer, your immune system can recognize early stage cancers and try to kill those cells before they get out of control. And it's when cancer actually evades that detection that it can grow and result in these really difficult to treat tumors. And in some cases, all we have to do is give a drug that will activate your regular immune system, and that can actually kickstart them into recognizing and killing really effectively. We have some really great examples of that in melanoma and in colon cancer, among other diseases. But sometimes the immune system you have in your body naturally can't quite get going well enough to overtake cancer. And so the research we do actually uses novel genetic engineering technologies to introduce new genes into T cells that allow those T cells to see cancer more effectively and recognize a cancer cell as distinct from a healthy cell. So we're empowering those T cells with the ability to see what is actually a problematic cell. And the thing that my lab really specializes in goes one step further. Solid tumors have many, many off signals or pathways that will make the immune system not work as well. They have many strategies for evading detection that don't involve just being quote unquote invisible. Some of these strategies are suppressive factors that will simply turn a T cell off. So what we're doing is trying to understand what are all those other factors that will make an immune cell not work. And since we're going to engineer a T cell in a dish anyway to recognize cancer more effectively, can we also empower those T cells to ignore those escape mechanisms or off signals that the tumor is going to present? So ultimately, we're trying to engineer a better, more effective cancer killing cell. And I guess another way you could phrase it is we're trying to really unleash the full killing potential that your immune system has.
Well, that's a very clear and fascinating description of the work that you're doing about making the body more capable of defending itself, it sounds like, is what that work involves. So I really appreciate that and the clarity with which you expressed it. We talked a moment ago about an experience you had with a teacher who really unlocked excitement and passion in you. I understand that currently the lab that you oversee has several doctoral students and postdoctoral researchers, medical students, staff scientists. You've spoken about the power of centering patients and survivors and advocate voices in the laboratory space. I wonder if you can share more about that patient-centered focus and how it is at the heart of the work that you do with the team of colleagues that you collaborate with.
Yes, thank you for asking. This is something that I'm incredibly passionate about because I recognize how my experience as a patient has shaped how I think about the science that I do. So my lab is certainly not alone in centering patient concerns like side effects and off-target toxicities. All my colleagues think about those things too. But one of the things we do that I've been really passionate about integrating more in our research program is bringing advocates to the table at very early stages of our research to help refine not only how we communicate our science and talk about what we're doing, but also how we think about new questions and the direction that we want to push the science to go. So, for example, when we have patient advocates who are part of the team, they don't just help us pick different words to explain our science more clearly. They actually ask questions about what kind of side effects might this have? Or if I were to get this treatment in the clinic, would I have to get it using a port and an IV? Or is this something I could take orally? How would something like this mix and match with the other medications that I'm taking? Would a medicine like this mean I have to forego other treatments that are also working? These are things that patients think about. They think about what kinds of side effects or quality of life issues might I have if I choose to get this medicine. And so we think about a lot of those things as we are doing our science. And we dig very deeply into mechanisms. What is causing this particular cell to work this way? And if we were to counteract that pathway, what would that mean? Not only for this one cell we're working on, but as the body as a whole, what would that do? And I think the patient advocate voices that we've integrated as members of the team and really brought to the table not only help us do things like design better clinical trials that can include more patients, but they also help us design better experiments and overall do better science. So I'm really excited about bringing them in not only as on the sidelines, but as a true member of the team. Even folks who don't have scientific training or cancer backgrounds can have really monumental impacts on how science goes.
Well, I think incorporating those voices into the process because of the effects that treatment can have, as you said, on quality of life is really important. So it's good to hear that you and your team are doing that. Dr. Anderson, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes with us today and sharing your time and expertise with you. We are just about done with our conversation, but before we conclude, we do have a tradition here on the Patients Come First podcast to wrap things up by asking our guests a pair of surprise questions. To keep things interesting, we have a list of 10 mystery questions that you can choose from. So if you select two numbers between 1 and 10, I will ask you the corresponding questions.
How about number 2?
Okay. That question is, if you were stranded on a deserted island, what one book, one album, and one movie would you take with you to keep yourself company? We will spot you a copy of the religious text of your choice. So other than that, what are your 3 entertainment survival kit picks?
Oh man, one of my favorite movies that I'm watching right now with my kids is actually Inside Out.
These are Riley's memories, and they're mostly happy, you'll notice, not to brag. But the really important ones are over here. I don't want to get too technical, but these are called core memories. Each one came from a super important time in Riley's life. Like when she first scored a goal. It was so amazing.
I really, really appreciate all the effort Pixar put in to making some of those conversations about thoughts and feelings and behaviors really linked. It makes being a parent definitely a lot easier. Let's see, music-wise, I'm a Broadway junkie, so I really love Hamilton.
World's gonna know your name. What's your name? Alexander Hamilton. My name is Alexander Hamilton. And there's a million things I haven't done.
And I could listen to that one on repeat over and over and over again till the end of time, including the Hamilton mixtape. And in terms of books, do I have to pick a book or can I pick a series?
Flexible.
Oh, excellent. I read a lot for work, and a lot of the stuff I read is science. So sometimes I like to get out of that mode and read for pleasure. And oddly enough, one of the things I really like reading is murder mysteries. So lately I've been on the Three Pines series, the Inspector Gamache series. That's a murder mystery series that takes place in Canada, and really enjoying that one.
Excellent. And then if you would select one more number, please.
Yes. How about number 9?
Number 9. If you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Ooh, there's so many things I would probably tell her. I think right now, the biggest one is keep believing in yourself. There are lots of things that will challenge your confidence and your enthusiasm, but don't let them pull you down.
That's great advice, and I think something that we all need to hear and remind ourselves of at various stages of life. So I appreciate you sharing that sentiment. And with that, Dr. Anderson, that's going to bring us to the close of another episode of the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association's Patients Come First podcast. If you like what you heard, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and subscribe so that you know when new episodes are available. And we want to once again thank our guest, Dr. Kristin Anderson, for joining us today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.